I'm on the air. I'm the one that will make you want to hear from me.
You're thinking from the employer standpoint, the player standpoint, the media standpoint. Why do you think that is?
We live in a society where people have become masters at pointing the finger at other people. I'm debating against people in Max's case. He has one lens. This is it. You come from one place. I come from a multitude of places. I remember I was in Detroit traveling back from a Pistons game, and
This is Mongolian Mindset, and today we're going to be typing the infamous Stephen A. Smith. We'll be using Linda Barrens Interaction styles combined with temperament. Highly recommend you pick these books up. Combined with cognitive functions. We will drop a link to our breakdown of each one of the metrics and the cognitive functions in the comments. Let's go see what the monkeys over at Personality Database has Stephen A. Smith as. Okay. They have Stephen A. Smith as an ESTJ. Okay. ESTJ, I don't think that's gonna work there. I think this guy's pragmatic as fuck. But hey, that's me. ESTJs are affiliative, so I don't think that shit's gonna work off rip. But here's our handy dandy chart here. So they got him as ESTJ. ESTJs are affiliative. That means they care about doing what's right. That's their number one interest. They check with their community before they do something. They are all about cooperation. While pragmatic people, which is what I think Stephen A. Smith has a utilitarian mindset. They're all about the ends justify the means. So we'll get into that. We'll watch the interview and see what we see. So you got ESTJs are affiliative, they're systematic, they're concrete, they're TEFI, they're SINE. They're initiating, their outcome. I think that's all of them. For ESTJ there. So if he meets those metrics, we'll call him ESTJ. If he doesn't, we'll figure out what his actual personality type is. And guys, we're still doing free typing sessions by us. There's no one as dedicated as we are at finding your type and making sure we get that right. All we ask is you subscribe to the channel, join our Facebook group or Discord. Both those groups are on fire right now. And message our moderator Cody, and he'll get back to you with our availabilities. Guys, we have so many celebrities to type at this point. Like, I do enjoy like the comments below and everything, but we have so many to type. So let's go ahead and knock out Stephen A. Smith. And comment below what you think Stephen A. Smith is if you follow him or know anything about him.
I got pulled over and I got surrounded by 8 cops.
So who do you think was best at post-game interviews?
And Kevin Durant came out and comes to the media and he said, well, I could do this and I could do that, but I'm Kevin Durant. Y'all know who I am.
That's right. You used to piss him off all the time.
I am not a person that hides in studio.
Who was it with John Wall, right?
It's 36 hours before the season. You were still overweight and out of shape. You cannot have TMZ having you on video saying this about you. He said, Stephen A. downed me out. That's a violation of my ethics. You're trying to paint me as something that I'm not. I will remember that.
Boy, I'm getting INTJ vibes hard already. I'm getting, just from the intro, I'm getting INTJ vibes. Let's get into this. That's what I love you, man. But
Let me ask you this. High school, I'm with you. 10th grade, 11th grade. Who's Stephen A. Smith?
Skinny kid from Hollis, Queens, New York. Striving to make something of myself, but very, very scared about life.
Really?
Coming from the streets of New York City, growing up poor, knowing that you wanted to capture a level of success for yourself.
talking about wanting to capture a level of success for yourself. I'm going to hit them for TE and the FI there. Okay?
And then wondering how you're going to maneuver yourself through the terrain of life and all that comes your way.
Talking about the how-to there, I can say that's process-oriented or progression or movement. Wondering about the how-to, so I'm not going to hit him for that. Fuck it.
to play high school basketball, targeting a basketball scholarship because you need a free education. You don't just want it, you need it because your parents can't afford to pay for your education. And also making sure that you stay away from the game. You know, drug dealers on the corner, around the block, in the park, et cetera, and you stay away from the allures of life, the easy buck. You know, you're starving and, okay, I only got about 3 outfits, wearing the same outfit at least twice a week. Never having a car, wanting those other things.
Wanting this, wanting that. So I'm here for NI there, but that's SENI. Okay, he was also talking about the drug dealers. I could hit him 2 there. This guy's INTJ.
Things that going on the wrong side of tracks could get you if you're after an immediate gratification. And just making sure that you're finding a way to avoid those things. Incentivized by somebody that you consider to be the greatest.
Sounds like Enneagram 6 here. Scared, fearful.
Human being alive, that was my mom. God rest her soul, and my family, 4 older sisters. My brother had passed away, not at that time. Obviously, he was still alive, but
Coming off direct, like we said here.
He was a traveling salesman before that. He was in the military. So just dealing with all of those different things. A father that I didn't have the greatest relationship with, but he was still my dad. Just finding a way to make it and trying to figure out.
Finding a way, NI.
How I'm going to do it, because the only idea that I had
is
is
going back to the how-to progression.
Basketball. I didn't see another path at that particular moment.
Since
I didn't see another path, NI.
what age?
Since, in terms of basketball.
What age did you fall in love with the game of basketball?
Oh, no. That was from the time I started watching basketball games. I was 4 or 5 years old.
Got it.
I didn't realize I could play until, later on. And so, when people started talking about you and talking about your skill set and how you could get a free education, and knowing that that would enable you to not have to depend on your mom in order to pull it off, that was the target, that was the goal.
If I'm in high school with you, we're sitting in the class room together, are you the guy that's constantly debating, I don't know about that, what about this, how about this, why
Yes.
not this? You were that guy.
I was always asking questions.
Okay.
I wasn't debating. I wouldn't say I was debating because the teachers didn't allow you to necessarily do that. But I always had questions. I was always inquisitive, particularly when it came to politics and social issues.
Interesting.
And English. I wasn't that strong in math. I wasn't that interested in math, but I was interested in stuff like political science. I was interested in politics. I was interested in some of the, just the things that went on behind the scenes. What led somebody to think the way that they think, articulate and elocute their thoughts the way that they did? What were the kind of things that went into that thinking? What was the difference between what you thought and what you ultimately disseminated to the masses? I always thought along those lines. I didn't necessarily have the answers, but I always thought about it because there was too many times that I looked at television, and I'm definitely a product of the television generation. There were too many times that I'd look at television and I saw people who just were not believable. They were highly credible, but not necessarily believable.
Wow.
Because they tried to, because you remember back in the day before commentary and punditry really, really took off. With this generation, back in the day, everybody was cookie cutter straight shooters. You might have known the facts, but unless you could prove it, you danced that dance of neutrality and just straightforward, objective reporting, as opposed to editorializing and things of that nature. You didn't see the talk show format all over the place like you see on This Week with George Stephanopoulos.
Sure.
Or it was This Week with David Brinkley. But when you saw Peter Jennings or Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw, the list went on.
All right, so we got name dropping, TE.
And on, you saw relatively straight shooters.
You saw this, you saw this, you saw this, SENI. Yeah, let's go ahead and knock it off here. He's directing the conversation, okay? And we got enough for SENI here. Okay, so with that being said, we have a lot of types on the board. We still have STP, NTJ, and NFJ with direct SENI, okay? So if you were just following along, but he's coming off TEFI, definitely. This guy, yeah, unfortunately, NTJ.
You saw Ted Koppel on ABC News
Name
Nightline,
drop.
straight shooter. Sam Donaldson covering the White House, straight shooter. His delivery, his presentation, his diction, etc., it came across in such a way that you kind of sensed what he was feeling. But the facts that he was spewing, the substantive stuff that came oozing out of his mouth, it was straight down the line. There were no chances with the editorializing. And that's what made it interesting. The first person that really gave me the idea of being able to editorialize and opine was Howard Cosell. That was the first person.
He's talking about what other people did, and now that led to where he's at. That's SENI, and that's hardcore. Whenever you hear that, it's like hardcore SENI. Like, you hear enough of that, you should be like, okay, this person's automatically SENI user.
I saw it and I looked at, which is why I loved him so much, because that was the first person that I saw
talking about a template there.
TV and said, I believe him, no matter what he says, because he made himself come across as very believable.
I believe him. He's not even fact checking him. Okay, so T.I. is fact checking. Okay, T.I. is gonna be like, I'm not believing you just because of fucking your title or whatever the hell it is. He just basically like bypassed the TFI. Boom. I like this guy. Believable. Taking anything he say. If you're a TE user, I hope you've learned to actually verify your shit. A lot of times, that'll help you.
About whatever it was he felt. You could challenge it, you can question it, you can object to it. But what you couldn't do was look at him and say, he doesn't mean what he says. Because you always knew he meant what he said.
So when did you go from the level of curiosity where you're asking because you're curious to now having an opinion about things?
Well, I would tell you that didn't come till very later on in my life as my career evolved. Excuse me. If you remember, I started
talking about how my career evolved, progression.
Started off as a newspaper writer. I was a writer for the school newspaper, disc jockey for the school newspaper, and stuff like that. And I grew up
fucking more TE.
In an age before social media, before the blogosphere and what have you. And so as a result, you were taught that you had to work your way up to the point where you had a license to editorialize and give commentary. Before you were a
talking about credentials here,
general sports columnist, you were a columnist covering one of the leagues. Prior to that, you were a beat writer or a features writer or an investigative writer and reporter, one of, if not all of those different positions, before you were given a license to editorialize and express yourself. And so the objective and the goal all along from day one was to ultimately elevate yourself to being a general sports columnist. And so I started
J1, said it, N-I-T-E, let's go.
Off as an intern, and then I became a high school writer for the New York Daily News after interning at the Winston-Salem Journal, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Greensboro News and
Here go my journey. Here come my journey, my progression, my movement, whatever you want to call it, process.
I was doing, my job title was an editorial assistant. I did calendar items and school lunch menus and things of that nature from 8:30 a.m. to 6 at night.
Wow.
And then from 7 p.m. to midnight, I covered high school sports, high school football in the Piedmont Triad area for the Greensboro News and Record for free. I did that on my own time. The goal was to always accumulate published clips because I knew coming from an historically black college like Winston-Salem State, if I was going against people from Columbia to the University of Missouri or Northwestern, the UCLA or whatever, and it was their school against my school, my credibility would be challenged because
talking about credibility here, TE some more.
My degree was in mass communications and it wasn't known for journalism per se as an institution, as an HBCU, while those schools were renowned for having journalism programs. And so I knew that I had to accumulate practical experience, published clips or whatever, because if I did that, then I could walk into an office and sell my work to a potential employer. Not because my work was better or more gifted than the other people, even though in some cases it was, in some cases it wasn't, but it was also me displaying my level of tenacity and my commitment to being in that profession. Because I knew and imagined that an employer.
I knew and imagined, there we go. There you call my envisioning. That's abstract there. Talking about envisioning, we knew it was going to come from his NIS.
If he's looking at somebody that has a laissez-faire attitude per se towards being in that industry and doesn't necessarily want it, I know every
talking about, well, see, that's one thing they're gonna tell you. That's what a strong NI user is gonna hit you with. Like, we know what we want, we know what we're going after, and we will fucking die about that shit a lot of times. It's hard to beat us out, especially like we committed to something, man. I mean, there's been a lot of, I talk about it all the time, there's been a lot of things in my life that I completely sucked at, but because I'd put my focus against anybody's. You can't outfocus me. I would do, if I suck at something, I'll do that bitch 1,000 times if I have to. It does not matter to me. Like, it just fuels me, and I don't even notice it. Just like, I don't know, I just feel like I'm in the zone. But watch that.
Employer wants someone who wants it. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're doing. If you are in a position where you hire somebody, the number one trait that you want to see outside of their obvious ability is the want it factor. How bad do you want this? What are you willing to do to be exceptional at this? Are you willing to go the extra mile? When is the job finished? Is it when you punch a clock, or is it when the job gets done?
See, that is a lot of times where being a strong NI user, we clean people up at, okay? I tell people all the time, I don't ever feel like I'm a genius. I don't ever feel like I'm better than everybody. I tell people all the time, I think I start a lot like further down than a lot of people being like dyslexic and stuff. But what I will do is I will get your ass in the end, because I will do something over and over and over and over, and you just cannot outwork me because I know where I'm going.
Those are the kind of people, and any employer that I've ever met has always wanted. And I knew that by showing my resolve and my tenacity as a person that was willing to work for free, as a willing to do new.
So he's willing to work for free. He's not interest-based. He's systematic. He's willing to work for free. It's not in his interest, really.
Numerous internships
That's
and stuff
impressive.
like that.
Yeah.
What could they say? And that's what I did. So when I showed up to an employer for an internship or whatever, I remember when I first started in the business, we had folks with resumes. I had 250 published clips coming out of college. How are you going to beat that?
You got an edge over everybody.
I got the edge.
And are you seeing that a lot today as well, since kids nowadays coming out of college or high school, they have social media, so it's easier to have a resume to show? It's not easier today, so the times haven't changed for you.
I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that from the kids.
Easier or harder today?
I think it's easier, but I think it's easier in certain respects to be more accurate, but harder in others. It's easier to generate material that you can give to a prospective employer to show your commitment or whatever. The hard part is, because it's so much easier to do, many, many more people are doing it. And as a result, you have more competition than ever before.
So let me ask you this. You know how you look at
Talking about competition, XE.
in baseball, you know, you look at some guys that do well because long-term they're disciplined. So I'm sitting down with Billy Bean. Billy Bean says, skill set.
This is perfect because we got an INTJ on one corner and we got an ENTJ on the other corner.
Mindset, pedigree, upbringing, strong family values. Then you look at a player and say, this may be somebody we may want to invest in. What are things in your world that somebody's got to look at? Because for you, you always say, you know, stay away from the weed. You look like a very disciplined guy, very meticulous. Obviously, even just watching you right now, very detailed. And then you have strong opinions, but it also, you're not a person that sounds like you wing it. You actually give your thought based on doing some research. What would you say are great qualities in your world of somebody to sit down and become good at what you guys do?
Well, I think all the things that you mentioned about Billy Bean are applicable. Not so much pedigree per se. I think that anything that's associated with my pedigree, to me, is about my mom. My mom's work ethic, her willingness to sacrifice, her being the mother of 6 children, and essentially having to raise us on her own. I don't talk a lot about my father, and I'm not about to now, out of respect and deference to my mother. Both of my parents have passed away, but I did not have a close relationship with my father. Part of the reason was because of how he treated my mother. The other part of the reason was because of his treatment to my mother and how it forced her to have to work so much to take care of us. I am a very, very, very old-fashioned dude in certain respects. If you can't do it, you can't do it. But I'm one of those old school, old-fashioned dudes from the standpoint, I believe it's not my preference to take care of my woman. It is my responsibility. It is not just my job to take care of my children. It is an absolute mandate. My philosophy is very, very simple when it comes to my family, particularly, me being a dad. If if they're hungry, it's because I'm starving. I don't eat until they eat. I'm not comfortable until they're comfortable. I don't have unless they have. That's the mentality, and that's the mentality that I strictly get from my mother. And so for me, having that kind of mentality, well, what comes with that? What comes with that is a certain work ethic that you have to put forth, and it's a willingness to sacrifice. Am I the most disciplined person in the world? No. Am I the most meticulous person in the world, like some people would believe? No, I'm meticulous enough, and I'm
meticulous would be like a systematic approach to things.
Disciplined enough, but I also know how to let go and relax or whatever, and sometimes I may not be as disciplined as I should be. But I think the key thing is that the bottom line is everything to me. And whatever the bottom line requires is what I'm going to do. If the bottom line requires an excessive level of discipline, I'm going to do it. If I can slack off a little bit and still achieve that goal, I might pick and choose from time to time to slack off just a little bit.
Yeah.
But to me, it's whatever the moment or the situation demands. And I'm a bottom lines oriented kind of person. I have an assistant. I have people who work for me. I have people who work with me. They'll tell you I'm very bottom line kind of guy. If you tell me that the job is going to get done, and the job is going to get done in an excellent fashion, and it requires 90% effort, I'll let you go with that. I'll let you get away with that. I'm not going to sweat it. But if this requires 100% and you give me 99, I might want to fire you because I'm about getting the job done.
Sure.
It's about the results. And I think that, unfortunately, when we look at our generation today, not enough people preach about that.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think that we live in a society where people have become
Patrick initiating.
Masters at pointing the finger at other people about reasons why things don't get done. I think there's too much explanation that goes on. And I remember, I'm friends with Gayle King. I know Gayle King, Oprah's friend for a very, very long time.
He's name dropping some more. Let's go ahead and knock him off of TFI. TFI. So with that being said, direct SENI TFI. There's only NTJ left on the board. Okay. Let's go hunt some more shit.
I remember years ago, she and I had this argument because I always accuse stuff like that of being this Oprah-fied world that we live in. And I don't mean that in a derogatory fashion at all. I love me some Oprah Winfrey. She's the queen, and she's a goddess in my eyes for all the things that she's done for various communities throughout this country. But I do believe that generation, led by the likes of an Oprah Winfrey, introduced explanations into everything. We can explain why this happened. There's a reason why this person acted up. There's a reason why they messed up, etc. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying some stuff I don't need to know the reason why. If you are a murderer, for example, I don't necessarily need to know the reason why you are one.
I don't need to see the TI. He just basically saying, I don't need to fucking hear the TI.
Stand to do the due diligence to put forth the research and what have you, and maybe we can study this psychopath or what have you and find out why they did what they did. But I don't need to understand all the reasons behind why you did something to know that you need to spend the rest of your life in prison, or in some people's eyes, the death penalty. I don't need, if you are somebody that's a heinous individual, that you deserve a level of punishment. I don't need to know all the reasons as to why you made your mistake before I need to know that you're going to pay a price for it. If you are a person that shows up to work and there are a multitude of reasons as to why you can't get the job done, I might be empathetic. But the bottom line is you ain't getting it done. And if you're not getting it done, I need somebody that can get it done. And every boss, every employer that I've ever worked for, while some may appear on the outside more empathetic, more sympathetic than others, where they are similar is the requirement in getting the job done, because they answer the people too. And so when you look at it from that perspective and you have that kind of mentality, I am of the belief that if you truly, truly adopt that belief in your soul.
Talking about beliefs and shit.
then you walk to work every day not looking for excuses. You're looking for a way for the job to get done. And in most instances, you
looking
are
for a way, and
going to be successful than not.
Is that a transferable mindset? Meaning, does a person have to be willing to take that mindset to internalize it, or can somebody just say, I don't want to deal with it, even in your world?
They can do both. They can do both, but I will assure you of this. The person that says they don't want to deal with it is not a person that's going to be successful at doing whatever that respective
Yet
job
you
requires.
believe they can, though.
They can. In most instances, I believe people can. Because I don't believe that employers usually put
you going to fucking believe.
you in a position where they know you will fail, if indeed their objective is success. If I'm a boss, it behooves me to place you in a position where I believe you can succeed, because you'll make me look good. Why would I want to make myself look bad? So I'm going to put you in a position where I think you can perform and you can succeed and you can make both of us look good. But if you don't have that kind of mindset, and you are a boss that has the kind of mindset, it doesn't matter to me what you do. You're a good person. I like you, but I know you're not qualified for this job. Chances are that boss is not going to be successful.
So one of the things I like about you is the fact that you sit there and you say, well, you know, Max will say something, then you'll say, well, I understand, but even on this show, we have to understand that somebody can come here and just because they disagree with us and we disagree with them, that they're wrong and we can't have a platform for them. I think you and Max have talked about, even this was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah. Why is it, Stephen A., that you, when you're giving your discourse, your feedback, whatever it may be, you're thinking from the employer standpoint, the player standpoint, the media standpoint? Do you think that's an edge for you? Because very few people have the lens to look at it from everybody's perspective.
I don't think everybody comes from my background. I don't think they come from my perspective.
But where does the employer background come from?
Allow me to explain
Please.
that. I'm relatively successful. I'm certainly not poor anymore. But I've starved. I know what that's like. So when you are a person from a disenfranchised community, or dare I say a disenfranchised position, there is empathy for that. But there's a reality that that disenfranchised person has to accept, because you don't get to change that. You don't get to legislate people's heart, mind, bodies, and souls in most instances. They are who they are, you are who you are. What it's important to understand, especially in this day more so than ever before, where the outlets, the tentacles that you have to reach the masses, it can give you a false sense of empowerment. This belief that you can reach anybody, absolutely true. It does not mean everyone wants to hear you. It does not mean everybody's going to care about what you have to say. There's a whole bunch of people with a Twitter account. They don't have 4.3 million followers. There's a whole bunch of people
talking about achievements here again. Goddamn TE.
With Instagram accounts, taking pictures all over the place. They
Talking about popularity, TE.
don't have 2.2 million followers. There are people that have 50 million followers.
There are people, SE, straight to TE.
80 million followers. But still people will tell them to shut up and dribble. Or shut up and play your music and leave us alone. And don't get into politics. Don't get into this and that. What I'm saying is those people might use their platform or attempt to use their platform to disseminate a message about something completely different and separate from what they're attaching themselves to at that particular moment in time, because that's what's important to them. The problem is that at times you're touching on something.
See, that's the thing with INTJs is like they have to get through their entire thought process before they can move on. Like they have to get all the process out before they can like get to that point. Like they have to get through all of it.
That is of no interest to the masses.
So a lot of times people can actually fuck up and think that they're coming off informative, but the thing is everything they're saying is closed-ended. And they're choosing their role, and he's choosing his role in the conversation. It's the same as Dario Nardi or whatever. Like a lot of people fuck up, or they'll see like an INTJ give them a response and the shit's like a book. It's because they have to go through their entire thought process. Okay, because they're process oriented. They are the most process oriented of all the types.
As it pertains to what's coming from you, because they pigeonholed you. They've defined what they want to hear from you. And as a result, if you step out of that lane, some might be receptive, some might lie in wait just to excoriate you because they believe that you're out of your lane. So if you're understanding that, now transfer that to the business world. I might have a situation where, you know what? I think I could do Monday Night Football. ESPN's like, no, we want you to do NBA. Well, last time I checked, I'm under contract for ESPN. I'm not under contract for Fox. I'm not under contract for NBC. You know what I'm saying? I'm under contract for ESPN. So that's strike number one. Strike number two, they have pretty damn good voices on Monday Night Football who are far more qualified to do football than I do. Strike
qualifications again, TEFI.
number three, I'm pretty damn good at this. First Take, radio, NBA, etc. That's generating millions upon millions of dollars for ESPN. Well, what does that mean? Why would we want to upset that apple cart to put you in a different venue that we don't know if you'll succeed at, but we're already successful at? So I can want what I want. I can believe what I can believe. Yeah. I can think whatever I want to think. But do I have the say? The answer is no. And the reason why that's something that you have to embrace is because in the real world, you usually don't get to make all your decisions for yourself.
Sure.
Usually it involves participation and approval from other people. So why talk to just one segment of the population as opposed to this segment, this segment, this segment, this segment? It's everybody. And when I'm debating, I think usually I'm debating against people, particularly, for example, in Max's case, who's incredibly altruistic in his perspective and points of view, particularly when it comes to the world of politics and social issues. He has one lens. This is it. Well, you come from one place. I come from a multitude of places. I've been there. I've done that. And so I see all sides. You're talking about this owner. I just had lunch with him. You're talking about this player. I just had dinner with him. You're talking about this particular athlete. Well, that's my man. I've known him for 20 years. You might be guessing. You might be right. But I know. And so as a result, it puts me in a position where I'm able to deduce the difference between my perspective, an informed perspective, and a direct perspective where I'm impacted by the party involved. All of those things come into play. And in my seat, you have to take those things into consideration if indeed you care about fairness.
Was that you? You've always been like that? Or was it always? So this isn't you work with Skip and you and him clash because off camera you guys talk politics.
That's my mother.
Yeah, okay.
That comes
That's your mother.
That comes from Janet Smith. My mother was, I had a white grandmother, a black grandfather, and my mother was not about race at all, believe it or not. My mother never mentioned race.
Very interesting.
My mother never mentioned race one day in my house. My mother.
All right, we're done here. We got Stephen A. Smith, INTJ. All right, there's fucking TEFI off the wall, SENI off the wall. So INTJs are responding. Abstract. Systematic. Obviously, keeps talking about being meticulous. Pragmatic. Okay. Direct progression. He's about to process here. He has to go through his entire brain process before he gets it out. So he's an INTJ. He's pretty damn well developed one. I'm gonna hit him for 6. 6 sexual / SO. I'm gonna hit him for prodigy level. I think he's prodigy level. INTJ, unfortunately. And I would say he's a dominant INTJ. Okay, subset from Dario Nardi. He's gonna be dominant. Okay. So some people probably think he's teetering on the line of ENTJ, but he's progressing. He has to get all of his thought process out. As you'll see, like with direct outcome people, like myself, it can be very brief, like to the point that like a lot of people ask me, "Yo, like, is that it? Like, is that it?" So We got Stephen A. Smith as an INTJ, 6 sexual / SO, prodigy level, and he's dominant subset. Personality database got it wrong. They call him ESTJ. Man, he's fucking pragmatic as hell. He's SENI as hell. And he's not outcome, he's progression. So that's dead. But they usually fuck up. It is what it is. 120 volts, that's not a lot. At least you got some ENTJ volts in there. That's close enough. This is Mongolian Mindset, and we are out, baby.